Standing at 1,345 meters above sea level, Ben Nevis looms as the highest mountain in the British Isles. Located in the Scottish Highlands, this imposing peak has long been a magnet for climbers and adventurers. However, its allure is matched only by its potential for danger, as its unpredictable weather and treacherous terrain have claimed many lives over the years. Ben Nevis is notorious for its harsh climate, often shrouded in mist and battered by fierce winds. The mountain's proximity to the Atlantic Ocean contributes to its volatile weather patterns, with conditions capable of changing dramatically within minutes. In winter, the summit is typically covered in snow and ice for around 6 months of the year, transforming the landscape into a perilous alpine environment. A not-so-merry Christmas. On December 22, 1956, 5 young friends from Glasgow set out on what they hoped would be an exciting Christmas adventure. James McGeown, 20, James Byrne, 18, Ronald Macaulay, 19, James Ross, 17, and Charles Boyle, 17, were eager to conquer Ben Nevis despite their limited mountaineering experience. As they began their ascent, the weather was clear and crisp, offering deceptively favorable conditions. However, as they climbed higher, the temperature dropped steadily and the wind picked up strength. Despite the worsening weather, the friends pressed on, determined to reach the summit. By late afternoon, as they neared the top, visibility had deteriorated significantly. Thick fog enveloped the mountain, making it difficult to distinguish between snow and sky. The group, now tired and cold, found themselves disoriented in the whiteout conditions. Unable to locate the descent route, the 5 friends made the fateful decision to seek shelter on the summit plateau. They huddled together, using their limited supplies to try and stay warm as night fell. The temperature plummeted to well below freezing, and fierce winds battered their makeshift shelter. For 4 long days, the group remained stranded on the summit, their situation growing increasingly desperate. Their food supplies dwindled, and the constant exposure to the elements took a severe toll on their physical and mental state. Attempts to signal for help proved futile in the persistent bad weather. It wasn't until Boxing Day, December 26th, that a break in the weather allowed for a rescue attempt. A team of experienced mountaineers from the Lochaber Mountain Rescue Team, alerted by the boys' worried families, battled through challenging conditions to reach the summit. The scene that greeted the rescuers was heartbreaking. They found the bodies of James McGeown, James Byrne, Ronald Macaulay, and James Ross, who had succumbed to hypothermia and exposure. Miraculously, Charles Boyle was found alive, though in critical condition. He was immediately evacuated to a hospital in Fort William, where he began a long and difficult recovery. The Christmas Day wrong turn disaster. Just 2 years before the ill-fated Christmas climb of 1956, another group faced a similarly tragic fate on Ben Nevis. On December 19, 1954, 11 climbers from the Royal Navy Air Station Fulmer in Buckinghamshire set out to conquer the mountain. The group, consisting of both experienced climbers and novices, was led by Petty Officer Reginald Atkins, a seasoned mountaineer. The climb began under relatively favorable conditions. The group made steady progress up the mountain's snow-covered slopes, their spirits high as they neared the summit. They reached the top in the early afternoon, pausing to take in the panoramic views and celebrate their achievement. However, as they began their descent, the weather took a turn for the worse. Thick fog rolled in, drastically reducing visibility. In these challenging conditions, the group became disoriented, veering off course from their intended route down the mountain. As they struggled to find their way in the worsening weather, disaster struck. 5 members of the group, including Petty Officer Atkins, accidentally stepped off a steep snow-covered edge. They plummeted down the mountain's north face, falling hundreds of feet onto the rocks below. The remaining 6 climbers, shocked and terrified by what had just happened, found themselves in an increasingly precarious situation. Lost, cold, and now without their most experienced member, they faced a desperate fight for survival. It wasn't until the following day that the alarm was raised. When the group failed to return to their base, a massive search and rescue operation was launched, involving mountain rescue teams, Royal Air Force helicopters, and local volunteers. The search efforts were hampered by continued poor weather and challenging terrain. It took several days before the bodies of the 5 fallen climbers were located and recovered. The 6 survivors were found in various locations on the mountain, suffering from exposure and hypothermia, but alive. Mind the head. In December 1956, just days after the tragic Christmas stranding on Ben Nevis, another incident occurred that would become etched in the annals of Scottish mountaineering lore. This time, the story centered around 2 experienced climbers, Jack Boyd and Jack Higginson. Boyd and Higginson arrived in Fort William, the town at the base of Ben Nevis, with high spirits and ambitious plans. However, their enthusiasm was met with an unexpectedly hostile reception from the locals. The recent tragedy on the mountain had left the community raw and wary of climbers who might be underestimating the mountain's dangers. Jack Boyd Memoirs. During their stay, they encountered a local nurse who shared chilling stories of climbers who had perished on the mountain. She recounted tales of bodies being brought down, frozen solid and with their faces contorted in fear. These stories, combined with the palpable tension in the town, began to weigh heavily on the climbers' minds. As they prepared for their ascent, Boyd and Higginson noticed an unusual sight: a flock of birds circling ominously near the summit of Ben Nevis. Unnerved by this and the warnings they had received, they decided to alter their plans. Instead of attempting their original route, they opted for the challenging South Castle Gully, hoping it might offer a safer alternative. The climb up South Castle Gully proved to be arduous and technically demanding. As they ascended, the weather deteriorated, with visibility dropping and the wind picking up strength. Despite the challenging conditions, Boyd and Higginson pressed on, their experience allowing them to navigate the difficult terrain. However, as they neared the top of the gully, disaster struck. Higginson, who was leading at the time, suddenly lost his footing on the icy surface. Before Boyd could react, his climbing partner plummeted down the gully, falling an astounding 1,000 feet. Boyd, horrified and certain that his friend could not have survived such a fall, began the grim task of descending to recover Higginson's body. As he carefully made his way down, he steeled himself for the worst. In what can only be described as a miracle, Boyd found Higginson alive. Despite falling such a great distance, Higginson had survived, though he was severely injured and in urgent need of medical attention. The soft snow at the bottom of the gully had cushioned his fall just enough to prevent fatal injuries. Boyd immediately set about trying to keep Higginson warm and stable while figuring out how to get help. After ensuring Higginson was as comfortable as possible, Boyd began the painstaking journey down the mountain to alert mountain rescue. Several hours later, Boyd finally reached a point where he could raise the alarm. A rescue team was quickly dispatched, and Higginson was eventually evacuated to a hospital where he began a long recovery process. While Higginson's survival was nothing short of miraculous, the incident left deep psychological scars on both climbers. Boyd, in particular, struggled with the trauma of believing, even for a short time, that he had witnessed his friend's death. The series of tragic events on Ben Nevis in the 1950s had a profound impact on the climbing community and the local population. These incidents served as reminders of the mountain's unforgiving nature and the critical importance of proper preparation, experience, and respect for the elements. In response to these and other tragedies, various safety measures were implemented. A barrier and warning sign were installed near the summit plateau, cautioning climbers about the dangers of straying too close to the edge in poor visibility. These incidents underscore the need for respect, preparation, and humility when facing the forces of nature on Ben Nevis. The mountain continues to draw climbers from around the world, each seeking their own connection with the raw power of nature, but it demands the utmost respect from those who seek to scale its heights. For more videos on mountain climbing adventures and safety, like, comment, and subscribe to True Perils.